Everyone expects you to have all the answers, but who's asking you how you're doing? Who's helping you think through your challenges? Engineer Your Success Insiders is my private podcast designed specifically for you. It's like having a coach in your corner focused on helping you win at work and at home. One story, one insight, one action that you can take, all wrapped up into real coaching insights that you can use. Join at engineeryoursuccessnow.com/insiders.
Leadership's never been about titles. Never has been, never will be. Leadership's about being able to inspire people and help them be fulfilled in what they're doing. And, when we talk about leader begins with understanding it's not about you, it's about your team.
Success isn't just about what you achieve. It's about living a life that reflects your values and priorities. Welcome to Engineer Your Success, the podcast that helps you lead with intention and live fulfilled.
Today's guest spent 4 decades leading companies, including Bank of America and Alight Solutions, and is now shaping the next generation of leaders. William Davis recently left corporate America and launched his leadership consulting and speaking business. He's the author of a new book that breaks down the difference between being a boss, a manager, and a true leader. If you've ever felt the tension between driving performance and connecting with people, or wondered how to lead others without losing yourself, this episode is for you. William, you've had a long, successful career in corporate America. Can you take us back to what life looked like just before you stepped away and launched your own business?
Yeah, James, it was a pretty easy decision. I read an article in 2023 where the World Economic Forum talked about the world leadership crisis. A lot of what they talked about were things I observed over the last 5-10 years in my career. In November 2023, the U.S. News and World Report Harris poll came out and said 78% of respondents said that we have a leadership crisis in corporate America. I told my wife, this is not difficult. Leadership's not that difficult. Things we do wrong in leadership are easily fixed. Focus on the fact that we're dealing with human beings. Tired of the corporate slant, corporate trend to look at our people as commodities or things or means to an end. They're not. They are human beings, and we need to deal with them in such a fashion that they are important. They have incredible desires. They have incredible complexities in their life. And we need to help them navigate that. I told my wife, I said, what do you think about if I just took the remaining years of my career and let's see if we can give back and help reshape maybe at least the discussion of what real leadership is about. And she bought in. She's like, yeah, let's do it. And so that was
Was there a certain time or incident where your shift about leadership changed?
Yeah, very early in my career. It was obviously I was like everybody else. It's all about me, right? I want to be the one to, reach certain milestones by certain ages. But I've had a very blessed life. I had great parents, raised, to know the right and wrong and how to treat people. My wife is one of the sweetest souls you'd ever meet. And my kids are the same way. What I would see with people I hire or who come onto my team are instances in their life or career which make them feel less than what they really were. Whether it be personal, whether it be professional, there was just a lack of confidence and perception about who they were. And that broke my heart because people need to be encouraged. People need to be uplifted. People need to be feeling like that they are important and that, there's somebody there that cares. And so as I kind of got more maturity to me, if you will, and some of the folks that I managed and led, were in a position where they would open up with me a little bit more and talk about things that happened in their life. I made the transition to, I need to be that person for them that helps lift them up. I need to be the one that helps them feel better about themselves and makes them feel like they make a difference.
Okay. Did you get any pushback? Did you get any pushback as you were using more empathy in your workplace?
Absolutely. It was disheartening because I would hear your attitude toward these people is putting you in a position where you're going to be used, or they're going to put something past you and you're going to miss it. And my comment was, okay, that may be true, but it's still the right thing to do. I've always told people that, when you take a leadership stance like I've always had in my career, you got to be willing to take some lumps, because you'll take lumps. And you've got to still be willing to stand up and say, you know what? I learned as much as they learned, and I can now put that into practice. One bump in the road or one person that fools me doesn't change my attitude, because people are human beings and they still need to be treated and dealt with in a like manner.
I love that engineers are people too, because we focus on talking to engineers and technical leaders. That concept really resonates with me. And I will often say that everyone wants to be seen, heard, and valued, right?
Yeah.
Everybody.
When you feel important, you are more apt to be successful. You don't focus on the negatives, you focus on the positives. And I've always noticed that when people come in, they're feeling good about themselves, they're feeling good about their life. When you sit down and you're working with them on an issue, they get a lot more creative, and they get have a lot more ability to think outside the box. That's, again, that's what we're all about, and especially, in the technology world. You give people the ability to stretch, and boy, there's nothing that we can't accomplish.
William, when we previously talked, you shared your new book explores the difference between being a boss, a manager, and a true leader. I'd love for you to give our audience a glimpse into that core message. What sparked that topic for you? And why do you think it is such a critical distinction for leaders to make?
This was the first thing I felt I needed to do when I started this new business, write this book. I wanted to address, because you always hear leader, manager, and sometimes boss used interchangeably. And there are three entirely different philosophies and ways you go about things. And what I wanted to lay out in the book was, leadership is more than just manager checking off the box of how do we get from A to Z. Right. And there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, managers, there's a need for managers. We've got to have managers. And, there's a lot of managers that have leadership qualities, and leaders have managerial qualities. But leadership is much more than just how we get things done. Why do we get things done? Helping people understand what they're doing, how it pertains to them, what they do in their job, and how they can grow from it. In corporate America today, we do not do a good job of helping people understand the whys of what we do. We have to get X done, do it. Well, why? Just because. That's why, because it's coming down from above. But James, when people understand the why, they help accept ownership, and it becomes important to them. And at the end of when it's done, they've got a great sense of pride and ownership that, hey, I was a part of that. Whereas, when you just need to get it done because we've been told to do so.
Yeah, I
There's
think
no
that's
innovation there, right? You kind of get stagnant. You get stuck in a rut, same old, same old. If you feel like you have ownership because you understand the why of what we're doing, man, you're going to invest, and you're going to really think of how do we do this the best way.
No, I think that's correct. In that, as you were talking, one phrase came to mind. It's difficult to connect with something you don't understand.
Right.
And as you're talking about the reasons for communicating the why, you're communicating the why so your employees can make a deeper connection to the mission, the vision, the purpose of that company, the product, or whatever the particular thing that you're working on.
Exactly. And in doing that, you helping them understand you have a level of trust in them, right? I'm inviting you in to be a participant in this process, right? And your opinion is important. I want to hear what you think. When we talk about leader, manager, boss, I don't like to talk about boss because it's a lazy way to deal with people.
Mm-hmm.
Leadership's never been about titles, never has been, never will be. Leadership's about being able to inspire people and help them be fulfilled in what they're doing. And, when we talk about leader begins with understanding it's not about you, it's about your team. I've tried to talk to people about the fact that when you're a leader, you've already hit a threshold where people look at you in a certain manner. You've been successful. You are looked upon as a tremendously important part of what you're doing. You don't need to worry about your team being your competition. I've had so many people that have worked for me through the years that have bypassed me on the ladder up the chain, and it never worried me because I was proud of them. Man, that's great. That's what I want for them. If that's what you want, that's what I want for you. And because the success of your people is the greatest accomplishment the leader can have. And when I am a leader and I'm happy for my people, they remember that and carry that on in their philosophy and how they deal with other people, right? And so you just can keep building on that. Whereas if you are so worried about yourself and you're continuing to hold your people down, that doesn't help anybody. When you talk about leadership and succession planning, when I decided to step away, I had two options. I could have either worked with somebody to help them step into that role, or I could have continued in that role for until the day I died. I want somebody to step into that role, never miss a beat, and forget I was ever there.
You know how to solve tough technical problems, but leading people, that's a different challenge. Stepping into leadership means more than just knowing your stuff. It's about inspiring, communicating, and navigating challenges with confidence. At Engineer Your Success, we help technical pros like you grow into leaders who just don't manage the work, but lead the people who do. If you're ready to lead with clarity and impact, visit engineeryoursuccessnow.com today, because thriving isn't just for others, it's for you. What was the most challenging thing about writing the book?
Knowing when to stop. I just finished my second book about building relationships. I had a harder time knowing when to stop. There's no singular way to build relationships. Everybody is different. I look at building relationships like a marriage. When you get married to someone, you're talking about two different individuals who are coming together that are X age, right? And so they've had a number of years of varying experiences. They're trying to blend together and be cohesive and gel together. In a marriage, you have 30, 60 years to do that. In a working relationship, you don't have that long, and it's not just two people. It's usually 5, 10, 15, 20, even more. As a leader, quickly figure out, how do I make connection with each of my people individually? Once I learn the connection with my people, how do I blend them so they have a connection together and then with me as a group?
For the leader that's listening to this podcast episode and eventually will read your book, what are 3 key relationship building tips you would give them?
Well, the first thing is you've got to determine that you want to be a leader. You have to be self-aware. Do I want to lead? When you become a leader, the job is to build a team, build a group, and make sure that they're able to function together. So when we talk about, being self-aware, I look at my people as more important than me. I've got to focus on them. I've got to help them succeed, and viewing them as people. Viewing them as human beings, going back to what we've talked about. They all have goals, they all have desires, but they also have challenges in their life, and they're not necessarily work related. So you have to be able to understand that while people have personal challenges in their life, I, as a leader, still have to deal with that because I have to help them get through those situations from a work perspective so they're successful. And so they don't either derail what we're working on or even derail their career because of things that they do. The second thing that I would tell people is understand that your team is not your competition. Right. We win together, we lose together. When you focus on their success, it's your greatest accomplishment. When they're successful, people are going to look at you and say, man, that's great. Now, you asked me, pushback that I've had. Well, one of the pushbacks that I've had is if you're dealing with your people like this, what do we tell executives that you're doing? Well, I'm leading the team. Take me out of the equation and see what happens. Just because I don't get caught up in the day-to-day micro work doesn't mean the part I play is less significant. Because when you have conflicts, which you will, confusion, which you will, when you have all of these other negative things that occur, which you will, you've got to step in, not necessarily solve it, but lead the team through it so they come out on the other side in a better situation. And then the last thing I would tell people is build your relationship with people one at a time. All right. There's not one singular formula that is always going to work with building a relationship with somebody. Why? Because they all have experiences that are different experiences. So if I come to you, James, and I say, hey, James, why don't you and I go out and do X? That may be something you've had a bad experience with, right? And you don't want to do that.
Yeah.
What I encourage people to do is get to know your people. You don't have to go 30,000 feet deep, but know them enough to decide, okay, they like to golf. I'm going to get them comfortable if I agree to go golf with them. Or if they like to go walking, I'm going to get them comfortable and be able to have a good conversation with them if I go walking with them. So, look at them from that perspective and then decide, okay, this is how I build that relationship. I've never, ever sat down with somebody in my office or a conference room and said, let's talk, let's get to know each other. Because that puts them at, again, an uncomfortable position that you are still looked up, up here as the boss or the official lead or head or whatever, and they're down here. When you get to know people, you've got to get on this same plane and make them feel equal.
There's no one size fits all formula for building these relationships. Are there skills or mindsets today's leaders need to develop to connect across diverse teams and generations?
That's a great question. I think the first thing is understanding that everybody has certain experiences in their life that are of concern, money being one, right? Relationships that they may have had and how they dealt with them or how the other person dealt with them. You try to find common ground. What do you like to do when you're out of the office? They have the desire for a work-life balance and affirm to them, I'm right there with you, right? I like to do things and not work 24 hours a day. Find out what it is. It can be a fun exercise, right? When I first took over a team that had been together for probably 10 years, we sat down as a group and we just, we're having fun, had pizza, was talking. And so I started talking to them about, hey, what do you like to do when you're out of here? And the stories that they would tell on each other. We could have fun with that, right?
Yeah.
You get them comfortable with you because you've invested in them. They know that you are bought in, that they're important, and that you are going to help.
One of the themes through your responses is adaptability. You have to be
Absolutely.
adaptable to the people you're trying to connect with and build relationships with. There's some generations where that cup of coffee or conversation, walking is going to be great. There are other generations where you may have to send a text message in order to start that connection or to start that process. And so as leaders, we have to be able to adapt our style so that we can connect with whom we're trying to lead.
That's a great point. Think about even 5 years ago, how much different we lead today. A lot of it has to do with the pandemic. right? We weren't face to face with our people every day. They were working remote. We dealt with them via text, email, Zoom and Teams and some, audio visual type software. But then all of a sudden, we've now asked people to come back into the office. And that's a totally new concept.
Yeah.
To your point, where they want to answer via text or email, no, you want a one-on-one conversation with them. And you've got to help them get comfortable with that because it's not something they've done a lot.
Looking back over your career, is there one leadership lesson you wish you would have learned earlier?
The biggest one I wished I had learned earlier is it's always worth it to take one for the team to do the right thing. There were times early in my career where I took the easy way out, and I wish I hadn't. It changed for me in the mid to late 90s. I had some situations, and I just said, enough's enough. I'm going to do the right thing regardless of the cost.
As you start looking at your future, what's on the horizon for you?
I love to do keynote speaking, and I've done speaking for 40 years. I'm dating all the way back to high school. I was in a group called Future Business Leaders of America. It was important to me, both in high school and college, and learned a lot of self-confidence from them about crafting, feeling good about presenting and believing in your message. And that carried me through. I did a lot of speaking at Bank of America because we did a lot of mergers and acquisitions. And I was up front in front of the people we were purchasing. I had a lot of opportunity to talk to them and try to encourage them and help them get through the process that I was part of. And in fact, I spoke at the national conference for the college division of FBLA in Dallas a couple of weeks ago. It was so encouraging to see all of those kids in the audience, shaking their head, yeah, as I would make a point, and they would come up to me and say, I'm glad to hear you say that. I don't see that in the workplace. I've always thought that's the way it should be. I told my wife, this is what's going to make all of this worth it, is this kind of ability to reinforce to folks, hey, there's somebody else out there advocating what I think's the right thing to do. I would love to get into the keynote, but it's a competitive business. If you don't have name recognition, nobody really wants to give you consideration for speaking. And that's fine. I can do a lot of things without that. I've done workshops, written articles, written books. But my biggest desire is let's get to a point where you allow me to talk to you about leadership, and let's start getting on the same page of how we can affect people in the best way.
Where's the best place for people to learn more about your work, your writing, and stay connected with what you're building?
I do have a website, williamcdavis.net. It has a lot of stuff I originally put out. I probably need to do a little rework based on things I've done. But it talks about the keynote speeches that I give. I'm more than happy to work something up and send it to you and see if that works. But then it has the link to my books. They're out on Amazon. So the links to those, links to the articles I've written, they're out there also. And then, the various in-person events that I have done and the podcasts that I've done, there are links to all of those out there, including yours.
Okay.
So to me, it's just, I want people to listen and, say yay, nay. And if they agree with me, how do I help? How can I help? Right. And let's see what we can get done.
You keep hitting the same walls with your team, your workload, your life.
You know what they say about insanity? Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results?
Are you ready to break the cycle? Engineer Your Success. Insiders is Dr. James Bryant's private podcast. It's like having a coach in your corner focused on helping you win at work and home.
One story, one insight, one action to help you focus on what matters most.
Join at engineeryoursuccessnow.com/insiders.
Thank you for taking the time to come on the podcast. I've enjoyed our conversation. Before we wrap up, we're going to flip the mic for a moment. What's one question you would like to ask me, whether about leadership, entrepreneurship, or anything we've touched on today?
I would love to ask you, you have done so much work through the years, and I really admire all the stuff you've done. From a leadership perspective, how have you seen it change over the last 5 years?
Ooh, that is a great question. There is a better recognition from all levels of leadership that we're dealing with the whole person. It's not just the professional or what's going on at home, but there is a recognition that it's a whole person and we want the whole person to come to work. Some of the companies that I'm working with now that are in these areas of growth, and they're growing, they're looking to continue to grow, but they want to make sure that they hold on to the essential company culture that they have. And so there's a recognition that culture, how you treat people, how your values are lived out in an organization is a key part of connecting with your people.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've got to live them. Just don't talk about them. You got to live them.
Got to live them.
The other thing I would ask is, as I talk to people, any key insights for me is how to get them engaged and hey, this is worth investing in and let's talk about it. Any thoughts there?
What's been helpful for me, so I can talk about what's been helpful for me, is being able to approach organizations, individuals from the perspective of the problem that I solve for them.
Okay.
Many of us make the mistake of defining the problem from our own perspective. And we may talk about our framework. We can talk about our book. We can talk about all of these different things, but it's from our perspective. When you frame it from their perspective, they understand what's in it for them from their perspective. Then you get people to start to reach out to you because you are solving their problem.
What's interesting is the 78% in the survey that said we have a leadership crisis in America. Every year when corporations do employee surveys, leadership's always in the 50, 60, 70 percentile. And they're like, what can we do to improve this? It's just open your ears. Your people will tell you.
Part is open your ears, but the challenge with many surveys is people will say that there's a leadership problem, but sometimes the people that say that are part of the leadership problem.
Exactly right.
They don't always recognize that they're part of the problem. It's like I've done workshops before where we're talking about effective communication, and we'll say, how many of you think that you are a pretty good communicator and you're really effective? Right. Tons of people raise their hand. They believe that they can improve, but overall they're great at communicating. So a little bit later on in the workshop, you say, okay, how many of you believe that the other people in your organization and your team need to improve on communication? More hands, raised up. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. Most of you said that you were effective communicators, but your peers don't always agree.
Yeah. Be honest with yourself. Nobody's perfect. Everybody can improve. Leadership is an ongoing journey, and you adapt, you improve, you learn, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? Leader doesn't have to know it all. The leader doesn't have to do it all, right? But they do have to be able to grow.
Yes. And I think that is a great note to end on. William, thank you for joining the podcast. We will have all of the relevant links to your website, your LinkedIn profile. We'll put those into the show notes. And I'm going to end this podcast like I end every episode of the Engineer Your Success podcast. Many people know what to do. Fewer people know how to do it. And there's a select group of people that actually follow through and are doing it. William, I want to thank you for being part of that select few.
Appreciate you.